Hello, everyone, and welcome to Leadership and Innovation Unlocked with Inclusive Collective, where we bring you news and analysis of the latest in people and workplace culture and share stories and learnings of leaders and organizations driving performance and innovation through inclusion. I'm your co-host, Rob Hadley, a people and culture strategist specializing in operational excellence transformations and analytics. I am joined today by my dear friend, Dr. Nadia Butt, a workplace culture strategist and talent development consultant. Nadia, what is happening? What is new?
Welcome back, Rob. You left. Did you bring me a croissant?
I did. Yes, and it's a little crusty at this point.
I can't
It's
even believe how many people actually texted and said he better bring you back a croissant. And I was like, I love that they're listening to the podcast.
yeah. It was a very very lovely trip. Yeah, it's France is great. It's
Yeah,
it's
France.
better than where I live. Let's
Okay.
you know.
On it.
Whole time I'm like, this is better than where I live. But
Oh my
what's
gosh.
new with you? We were
Yeah.
warming up here, and I saw something on your hand too.
Yeah, you did. Did you see
It's
a ring?
a
And henna?
spackler.
It's like
They call
henna,
it
the
a
henna's going away, but I got married
yeah.
on
They call that a
January
spackler,
18th.
right in
Little
Boston.
sparkler right there, yeah.
Yeah. And where you?
Oh.
And you're in a new studio today.
I
What
am in a
what's
new
your new?
studio, my new home with my new husband and my new library. Could you see the Britannicas?
Yeah,
The
yeah.
encyclopedias
Yeah.
that he still has. No one has these
You
anymore,
came
but
on, and I was
Omar
like,
does.
wait. Yeah, you came on today, and I was like, wait, are we in the same room? Right?
I
Like.
know. No, I don't love cars as much as, other people do. But no, it's a
Right.
great space, honestly. It's a beautiful office.
Yeah, and if
Um,
you need quick reference, you got the Britannicas right behind
at the
you.
fingertips, at my fingertips. I'm telling you, I got a globe right here on my desk. It's amazing.
Well,
Oh,
congratulations to
thank
you.
you.
It's very very excited for you and this new chapter in your life. But hey,
Thank
we
you.
got it. We got a show to do, though,
We got a
right?
show to do, so
Yeah.
enough is enough,
What do we got
you know?
today?
All right, well, Amazon just confirmed 16,000 more job cuts as part of a broader effort to reduce bureaucracy and speed up decision making. So the news actually leaked first through an internal email that was sent in error because before employees were actually formally informed.
Okay.
CEO Andy Jassy is continuing kind of a multi-year restructuring, pushing for tighter costs, mandatory in-office work, and what he's calling a time to rethink everything. Basically, as Amazon reshapes its workforce and closes its remaining Amazon Fresh and Go stores. Thoughts, Rob?
Yeah, I mean, I have a lot of compassion for people that makes mistakes with like with emails,
Yeah,
right?
I know. I know.
I've s
Remember those people that
I've
would,
done
like,
it.
reply all to emails? You're
I've
like,
done it.
"You know
Yeah,
what?"
I haven't done that, but, all of us will do something like that at some point. I think that, and there's going to be layoffs, and, I think that, it's something that I would assume that there's a lot of overhiring, over the course of the last several years as they scaled up, and I think the
Mhm.
tougher thing for Amazon are really the optics of laying off 16,000 people
Yeah.
when, in the same week that the Melania documentary,
Part
premieres,
Yes.
and you spent
Okay.
75
Mhm.
million of on this content that nobody
Mhm.
wanted or nobody was asking for and nobody's going to watch.
Yeah.
And so, that's basically a blatant payoff, right? So you're basically saying our business is too expensive. We need to cut costs, but we have money for bribes, right? Like that's where we can find money for. And so that's where, I think the optics are a little bit tough for them. And, it's another, we're going to talk about some other stories of the ways that,
CEOs,
yeah,
decisions.
CEOs and the way they
Yeah.
stand with people and,
Yeah.
they got to be on the right side of issues, but it's just another example of where, we kind of need to break up with big tech. I'm still trying to figure
Mm.
out how to do it. But yeah, I don't know. What did you think of Amazon?
I mean, so I did not think you were gonna go to the Melania route, but wow, you're so right. But I think what stands out to me is not necessarily like the scale of the layoffs because I've been through like mass layoffs twice, and I know several people that work at these bigger companies, and it's more of like how they were communicated or how they're done. Like, because like in my mind, change is inevitable, right? Especially in like the fast moving environments, but I think how you handle people, right, through that change really matters. So like the I don't understand why time after time, I feel like the lesson is simple, but leaders are just not gathering. Like it's employees just seek clarity and transparency and compassion. And so if you're going to move fast, you also have to communicate thoughtfully. And I think that's where you really miss out on the trust and the trust that was built or you're trying to build. And that can be broken in moments like these. And then it makes people who either work there have like that survivor's guilt or just like fear of like what's next. And so that's where it's like that psychological safety that we speak about, that really it becomes like a very real thing for people. So that's where I was going with it.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know how you recover. I've never been, at a place where there were layoffs where people ultimately regained that trust. I mean, I think once you actually
Yeah,
break that seal,
it's so hard to
it's kind of
rebuild.
over, and
Yeah,
there's a, like you're
bitter
a different
taste.
company after that. And
Totally.
so obviously if you're a big company and you do this all the time. Now the thing
Hmm.
that I would tell you is like they don't care, right? Like they do not care. Amazon does not care, and that
Mm-mm.
this is something the way that it happened.
Hmm.
And and I think that that's instructive, and I think that they'll be doing this again,
Hmm.
and and probably in the next year they'll
Couple of months, six
probably
months.
be doing
Just did it
this
in
story
October.
again.
They'll do it again.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
Exactly.
sure.
They
Yeah,
they they don't care, and I think that, and so that leads us into the other thing that I wanted
yeah.
to make sure that we
What's the
talked about,
next? Yeah, of
which
course.
was, I want to get your thoughts on the Minneapolis area CEOs. Like, so they put out a statement after the death of Alex Preety,
Yeah.
and I assume everyone knows this is the protester that was murdered by ICE agents in this past week. And so the statement urged the administration to work with state and local officials to immediately de-escalate.
Mhm.
So two,
Mm.
quick things. I want to get your thoughts, right? So
Sure.
so one, I think that this is the right way to push back, right? You come together, all together. There's some strength in numbers. No one's exposed. The administration likes to go after individual companies or entities or institutions, right? So we see this with universities or
Mhm.
with law firms or media. So it's really smart to team up when you want to push back. At the
Mhm.
same time, this particular statement was not super forceful, and I
Mhm.
think that it was a little bit late in coming, right?
Mm,
Right,
mhm.
and so, like,
Mhm.
what's the point of coming together to show your power and strength if you're gonna have, like, a mealy-mouthed, statement that says, "Hey, gee, wouldn't it be great if you toned it down a little bit?" So, I don't know, what
Yeah.
did you think about this
Well,
statement?
you do that when you think it's gonna hurt your revenue. So that's probably why it was done. I think you're right. It was like it's like a little it's done late and it's not enough. I just keep thinking back like the major corporations that are in Minneapolis are like United Health and Target, and I'm just focused on Target specifically because I think Target in general has lost a lot of revenue and even store like profitability in the last few years based off of their decisions and stances on the DE&I, removing kind of DE&I from their from not removing from their website, but like mitigating I don't know what they did. They minimized sort of
Pulled
like
back, yeah.
they pulled back. That's the right phrase to
Yeah,
use.
yeah.
And then and then on top of it, just the last few, I think it was in the last month, there were several employees that worked at Target that were taken down by ICE.
Mm,
And so I feel like, leaders just like can't stay on the sidelines when their communities are under stress. And that to me is like a huge lesson. It's a leadership perspective that's like very humanistic. So even if the situation is complex or politically charged, I think stepping forward with values that are aligned, um, in communication and a call for constructive dialogue is critical. It's crucial.
yeah,
Silence can be interpreted as indifference, um, and I think having that thoughtful engagement can really help shape solutions and then, of course, build trust.
yep.
But, yeah, so what are your
Yeah, I could
I know you have thoughts.
I would just go further, and so, like,
Mm,
you jumped into Target. Target was the first thing that stood out to me, right? Like,
yeah,
so I actually blame the watering down of that statement on Target, knowing nothing about the behind the scenes discussions about this, right? So, like, if
okay,
you
yeah.
remember, it was outgoing CEO Brian Cornell, who was, who was very tearful and hugging people, during the George Floyd protests, only to reverse course these last couple of years. And so when I
Yeah.
see the watered down nature of this statement and the
Mhm.
delay in using their collective power, like it leads me to suspect that there were holdouts or
Mhm.
people that were, hey, maybe let's not do this
Like,
right
let's
away.
not get involved
And it
right
just,
now. Yeah.
I like literally zero in on Target, knowing nothing about this process, and say
Yeah.
probably Target like
It's probably Target.
screwed
Yeah.
this up. So
Yeah.
you can't imagine the damage that his actions and his inactions as a CEO have done to my perception,
Mhm.
certainly of Target, and probably a lot of other people's as well.
Mhm. Yeah, I would agree. Yep. Well, thanks for the deets on that. That's a great discussion. Folks, we will be right back with our guest this week, Sophia Huck. Today's conversation is a really special one for me. We are joined by Sophia Huck, someone I not only deeply admire professionally, but also have the privilege of working closely with and calling a friend. Sophia is an investor and senior program manager at Slauson & Co., founder of and CEO of Muslim Women Professionals, MWP, and founder and CEO of Huck Global Ventures, where she consults and advises startups and small businesses. She was named one of the top 50 most influential Muslims in 2023, 2024, and 2025 by Equality X. She received the ARC Social Justice Connector Award, was selected as part of the esteemed, I'm going to say this incorrectly, I apologize. Is it Negocius?
Oh, negocios.
Nogosias, now Los Angeles Latinos 40 under 40 list, and received the Unsung Hero Award given to leaders that provide meaningful support to communities. And recently just launched Your Hermana Baji in VC on LinkedIn, where she demystifies ventures with insights from investing, building, and serving communities. I'm not done yet, Rob. Sophia and I serve together at Muslim Women Professionals, where she leads as founder and CEO, like I had said. And over the past year, I've just had a front row seat to her leadership, her vision, her heart. I've watched her navigate venture capital and community building and innovation with just so much intention and courage and integrity. She really brings her full self into every space she enters. And that's something that I just truly respect and admire. So, Sophia, welcome to Leadership and Innovation Unlocked with Inclusive Collective.
Oh my gosh, I'm so excited to be here. I've been looking forward to this for a very long time.
Sophia, it's so nice to meet you. Thanks for joining us. And I didn't know that we have to work on Nadia's Spanish accent, though.
I know.
Right?
Who knew?
I
I
didn't
think
know that
as soon as she said it, I was like, it's all right. I'm used to
we
my,
gotta
Pakistani side mispronouncing
we
Spanish,
have
or
to
it's fine.
yeah, we found a gap in her skill
There
set,
is a gap.
right?
It's a
So,
known gap.
but thanks again for joining us. I want to jump into venture capital, right? So
Yeah.
historically, this is a very exclusive place, and we've had a lot of venture capitalists and other investors on this show over the years. How do you think about, I'm just curious, how do you think about power? Who holds it? Who gets access to it? How have you learned to navigate this space? And do you consider yourself a disruptor? And then, it's a place where it's somewhat exclusive. How do you stay authentic to yourself as you enter that space?
Yeah, I think initially, looking back at my upbringing, I never ever thought I'd work in any finance sector, finance adjacent sector. I mean, finance was ultimately something that I actually was afraid of. I think, especially for a lot of children of immigrants, we're kind of taught to kind of fear, things like credit cards or finance or whatever, just because, especially when
Right.
you're growing up as, first generation. And, for our family, we were middle income at one point and then we were low income. So money was just, it was just a very, difficult conversation to have. Especially when you just don't have enough of it, right? And you kind of think in your mind like, oh my God, this is scary. I don't know much about it. I could never see myself working in that space. And so the fact that I'm working in the space now is really funny, to be honest. But I also think that it is a testament to how you should not limit yourself ever. Because working in this space is giving me the opportunity to learn about so much. When I first learned about venture capital, which was, not even probably 8 years ago, in learning about how there are wealthy individuals who will give money to different firms who will then go out and invest, I was just blown away. I was like, there's no way that this is real. And the more that I looked into it, I realized, wow, this capital doesn't just have the opportunity to impact those founders, that you can truly make a huge change for, first of all, the trajectory of that founder's life. They can build generational wealth if
Mhm.
they're able to be successful, which then can create economic empowerment for them and their families, which then can have positive impact on their communities, and which will then influence so many other founders, particularly of color or those who come from low socioeconomic backgrounds, to feel like they can do it too. And so I think that, when it comes to traditional venture capital, it is, all about power, right? But I think that what I believe truly is that you can build a really successful company, and your identity is what can give you leverage. And
Mhm.
so in coming to Slauson and Co. and learning more about their motto of your lived experiences or your competitive advantages really aligned with myself, because I grew up really embracing that. Being mixed Pakistani and Mexican, I remember when I was really young, I kind of thought everybody was mixed because I grew up with a lot of other folks who were also mixed. And then when I started going to school, I realized that's not the case. And I think back then, a lot of people did not really view it in a positive way. It was almost very much like, you're not Pakistani enough, you're not Muslim enough, you're not Latina enough. And I remember something that my dad always told me, which is your ability to be, multi-ethnic and be Muslim and be a woman is what gives you the opportunity to see the world in such a different way,
Mm.
because some people only see it from their perspective. You're able to see it from so many different perspectives. And so,
Mm.
if anything, I think that has been what I bring to venture capital. And I'll be very honest, when I first joined venture capital, I couldn't be just unapologetically myself. It was very difficult to navigate the space and witness, especially a lot of sexism and Islamophobia. But I think that one of the things I always told myself was, I will always stay true to my values. I will never allow myself to be put in situations where I have to compromise who I am. Because at the end of the day, I know that a lot of people look up to me, which I didn't really realize before. And a lot of people look up to me to say something or to be very vocal about different issues. And so, when I look at founders in this space or meet other investors, I want to encourage them to be their authentic selves, because that is ultimately what is going to positively change this industry that I think has been, you know, gate kept for a very, very long time.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And thank you for talking too about your identities. Like you hold these
Mhm.
multiple identities and ethnic identities. I'm curious, like as that translates, you mentioned how it translates in the VC space. I'm curious how those identities show up in your leadership day to day. So like, what's challenging right now for you about leading from these diverse identities? Are there moments where you feel like there's a strength? You mentioned some, and then are there moments where it feels a little bit more complicated from a
Yeah.
leadership perspective?
Yeah, that's a great point. I think that, there's so much happening in the world right now, and a lot of people are really scared. And I think for a really long time, people were afraid to speak up because they felt like they could lose their jobs. They felt that it would put a target on their back. And I think that I had to really have this conversation with myself even a few years ago around looking at myself and the role that I have, especially with Muslim women professionals, right? Being the founder and CEO, and really, kind of asking myself, you know, are you willing to take a stand and be really vocal in the role that you're in? Recognize that it is hypocritical for you to tell women that they can be their authentic selves in the workplace. But if you're not speaking up and you're not showing that by example, then, what are you actually doing? And so I made a decision a few years ago to like really be very unapologetic and vocal about different things. But what I have found, especially recently, is that I have received so many incredible messages from founders and investors and people in venture capital who will pull me aside at conferences
Hmm.
and at dinners and say, I cannot talk about what's happening in Palestine, what's happening with ICE raids, or what's happening in Sudan. So when I see you posting about it, I just want to let you know how thankful I am, because you are bringing awareness to issues that so many people are afraid to talk about in this space. And so I think when it comes to being a leader, sometimes it really is difficult because you do get backlash. I know that there are people who don't like me. I have also been harassed on platforms like LinkedIn for speaking out about things like Palestine. And I have to remind myself that, you know, I am still so privileged, and that at the end of the day, it is my responsibility to do that. Because if I don't do it, then so many others may not feel as supported to do so. And so it's a very tough, it's tough sometimes because you want to bring awareness. At the same time, some people don't want to hear it. And I think that's been one of the most frustrating things, is that a lot of people don't care to educate themselves. But at the end of the day, I have made the decision that I will lead with my values, and that at the core is all about human rights. And the last thing I'll say about that as well is, I had a dad who, witnessed the apartheid in South Africa. He witnessed it himself. He saw what apartheid did to an entire country, and that changed him forever. And so growing up, ever since we were young, it wasn't this thing around advocacy. Advocacy wasn't even a word in our household. It was like, this is the right thing to do. That's what it is. It's the right thing to do. And no matter what industry you work in, no matter how much money you have, politics and ultimately is something that we all have the right to criticize, the right to talk about, all of that, because so many people in other parts of the world don't have that same opportunity to do the same thing.
That's great, and I wish there were some corporate leaders that had the same attitude at this
Or
at this
boldness.
very moment. So perhaps you can educate some of them. Maybe they'll tune in. But I wanted to ask. So within venture capital, so you're in both tech and VC. You also have this community-centered space through the Muslim Women's Professional Network, right? So, how do you think about innovation when it comes to equity, whether it's AI, leveraging AI, building new models of support, reimagining leadership pipelines? Like, how do you think about equity in these contexts?
Yeah, I think that AI has definitely been a very big topic of discussion for sure. And I think, like anything else, there's pros and cons to it. I do believe in leveraging AI to be able to provide accessibility. And so, one of the things that I really talk about, especially to a lot of founders when I'm on panels, or even when I'm, judging pitch competitions and talking to founders after the fact, is, it's never been easier to build a business than now. 10 years ago, it would take you so much time just build something, and now you can do it in a third, a quarter of the time with a third or a quarter of the team. And so, what I try to encourage people to do is really look at it as a tool that they can leverage to be able to build something really incredible. And I also like to educate people around venture capital and letting them know it's not just about building something, it's about building something that is exceptional, building something that is really going to disrupt the spaces that you're in. And, you know, building something that ultimately is going to have venture capitalists, flocking to you and wanting to invest. One of the things that I actually said at a conference I spoke to this past weekend was, to founders, I said, build the best company possible. And then when it comes to finding investors, find investors who align with your values. That is ultimately what's going to create change. And so I think so many of them came up to me just kind of, like enamored. And they were just saying, thank you so much for talking about this, because I didn't know the power that I had being a founder. And so I think that this is opening a very new discussion within venture capital, but I'm very excited because, there's a whole lot of opportunity for a lot of new upcoming venture firms to be able to invest in really incredible companies without having to compromise their values to do it as well.
Yeah, I love that. I would like to switch gears into asking kind of for your advice as a leader, as someone who sits in VC, which is like a very fast-paced environment, right? You're doing like very deeply meaningful, impactful work across all these like multiple fronts. Um, what practices or mindsets help you sustain yourself? Wow, I know. Help you
I know when I
sustain
saw
yourself
that question, I was like, oh boy.
well, I think about like all the change that's happening across VC. I know, within the nonprofit Muslim Women's Professional, there's you're scaling, you're supporting the team and really thinking more strategically. So how do you recognize for yourself as a leader, like when you need to slow down or just like recalibrate in general?
Well, I think this is a conversation that goes back like almost a year. I'll never forget having a conversation with Nadia, and I think Sahar was also there. They are both our co-chairs for our board of directors. And I remember kind of telling Nadia, like, I am really struggling. Like I'm a founder for this organization, but I also work in VC and I'm trying to balance everything, and balance is just it's not working out. And so one of the things she encouraged me to do was to work with an executive coach, Farah, who's been incredible. And I think that really opened up a lot of thoughts in my mind of just how I had been putting myself on the back burner for so long. I feel like when I, was trying to get into venture capital, I was, working so hard for such a long time because I told myself I have to outwork everyone. I have to put in as much of my time as possible. Being a Muslim woman in this space, a woman of color, is really hard. So I need to just go above and beyond. But at a certain point, once you get in, that's not sustainable. And so I think one of the things I've really thought about even in these past few months, is really setting boundaries with my time and giving myself personally a lot less, and also focusing on hobbies. Like I don't even remember the last time I had a hobby. And so recently I actually picked up horseback riding again. I used to do it when I was younger,
Mhm.
and I decided to get back into it, and it has been just the most incredible thing. And so I think that sometimes as leaders, especially as women, we feel like we have to sacrifice everything to, get the results that we want. And I think what I've learned from Farah as well as Nadia and Sahar is, no, as a CEO and as a leader, you have to set boundaries. You have to hold people accountable. You need to have processes set up. And so the same thing that I feel like my founders that I work with, I was having to kind of sit back and look at myself and be like, wow, I need to also take that advice, and I to really be um, respectful of my time and of my health, because that's the only way I'll be able to sustain myself moving forward.
Mm. Rob, I did not tell her to say that. I just want to like preface, there was no
This
plugging
is a
it
little
right
too
there.
much. Yeah.
He's like,
This
geez, should I leave
is
you guys alone?
this
You
seems
guys
like a
want to have a
setup. Yeah.
conversation one on one?
This seems like a setup, but yeah. No, that's I really appreciate that, and and I love that you're horseback riding. That's super. That's really cool. Just one last question just on investing. I think that might be helpful for for some listeners as well. So I've seen a lot of vehicles offering access to VC investments at lower entry points, so which is good. I worry about fraud, or at least unrealistic expectations, right, of people that may not be familiar with the space. So, just give me like 1 minute on, like, if you're not familiar with venture investing, you want to learn more. How do you get people into that space, and how do you, in a safe and realistic way?
Yeah, so actually, that was something that I was also noticing for a really long time, especially with a lot of founders of color, Muslim founders who are deciding to build. So that was actually one of the reasons why I started doing startup and small business consulting and advising, was
Hmm.
because the barriers to entry to get into an accelerator now are so much more difficult than they were like 5 years ago. 5 years ago, you could have an idea and then you investment, and then you're good to go, or you go into an accelerator. Now you have to have so much just to get into an accelerator. And so for me, I was like, where are they going to go? Who can they work with? And so that's when I kind of started building my own framework of what I believed was, you know, the foundations of learning about venture capital and understanding these areas. A lot of founders think, yeah, I want to get VC investment. And what I tell them is, unless you're going to, grow 100x and, you're going to, hopefully build $1 billion company, VC is not for you. If you're trying to just build a successful company and like, $10 million a year is good for you. Okay, cool. Or 5 million, a million, whatever. It's like, but that's not necessarily VC. And so to your point, I feel like even at a conference I went to this weekend, which was Tech Founders Investors,
Mhm.
I heard so many people use terminology incorrectly,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm very scared and nervous for them because I was like, shoot, they could get taken advantage of. So that was also the reason why I launched this new page on LinkedIn called Your Hermana / Baji in VC. Hermana and Baji means sister in both Urdu and Spanish. And for me, it was really about demystifying VC, talking about investing, talking about portfolio management, talking about being a founder, providing resources, letting them know about the things that they should do, shouldn't do, because ultimately, we're not going to really be able to make a change in this space unless we have more people that look like us. And I think a lot of the times information is, really gate kept, or it's incredibly expensive for people to get access to it. And so for me,
Right.
I was like, what better way to, showcase what I've learned and to hopefully build a better future in this space, and by paying it forward and sharing that knowledge with others. And
Mhm.
I think since that's happened, I've been able to work with a lot of different founders from all different backgrounds and give them advice. And I think that because they see themselves in me, whether they're Muslim or Latino or South Asian, or they're just a person of color or a woman, I feel like they have that trust, knowing that, she's not going to sugarcoat it. She's going to tell it to me like it's real, and she's going to help me get to where I need to be.
Very
That's
cool.
great. Yeah, really cool. And I think just great insights, and what a cool venture you're launching on LinkedIn, especially for women and folks with like multiple identities who want to, lead or innovate or enter spaces like VC, but don't always see themselves in those spaces. So,
Exactly.
Sophia Huck, thank you so much for
Thank
joining
you.
us this week. It was a pleasure. And we hope to see you back. But thank you again for joining us on Leadership and Innovation Unlocked.
Thank you for having me. This was awesome.
Stay with us, folks. We'll be right back with our Con Reflections and Raves and Rants.
Welcome back, folks. We just finished chatting with our guest, Sophia Huck. Nadia, other than that being just a, Nadia's great session, right, from our guest,
Yeah.
any
That was
any
funny.
any thoughts or reflections from our
Oh,
discussion there?
I always have so many thoughts and reflections. I mean, listen, I've been working with Sophia. I've had the privilege to work with her for a few years now, and she's just like such a wonderful human being. I think there were two massive takeaways. Like the first was on the bravery about using your voice. I think this circles back to sort of like the CEO discussion that you had up top
Mm-hmm.
here, regarding like Target and some of these other Minneapolis corporations. But I was moved by Sophia's honesty about, the courage that it takes to speak up as a leader, right? There was something powerful about hearing her talk about naming what she believes in, even when it's uncomfortable.
Right.
And it was a reminder that leadership isn't about being perfect or being liked. It's about being brave enough to stand in your values. And then I think the other thing that I think really stayed with me from our conversation was how intentional Sophia is about self care and something I need to be better at, which is boundary setting, right? Eh,
Mm-hmm.
Um, but not as a luxury, but more as like a leadership practice. So it reminded me that sustainable impact doesn't come from burning ourselves out. We've talked about this. We've had guests talk about burnout, right, on our
Mm-hmm.
podcast. I think that it comes from knowing when to pause, when to protect our energy, um, and when to give ourselves permission to like step back so that we can show up more fully and more present. So yeah, I really appreciated her thoughts on that. What any takeaways for you?
No, it's just that it seems that that you're the person that gives that advice, and so I'm just looking for for your counsel on certain maybe a year from now you'll help me through a few things as well.
I need to help myself before I can help you. Okay, I might dish the advice, but that doesn't mean I take it. But no, yeah, really great conversation, I think, with Sophia overall.
Awesome. Well, let's end it here with some rants and raves. I'm
Yeah.
gonna rant
You're
first.
ranting today? Go for it.
Yeah, yeah. And so this is close to home. So a couple received a $200,000 settlement in a civil rights lawsuit from the University of Colorado, my alma
Your
mater.
alma mater,
Uh,
yeah.
so an Indian graduate student heated up some palak paneer in an office microwave, and someone made an insensitive comment about the smell. A complaint was filed, which descended into a pattern of escalating retaliation, leading to the revocation of the student's doctoral funding. So things got out of hand pretty quickly. So this is kind of a come on man
Yeah.
segment for my alma mater.
Yeah.
Because how does this happen in the anthropology department, Nadia?
Oh, that's a
Right?
good
Like,
point. I forgot it
shouldn't
was the
shouldn't
anthropology
anthropology
department.
students be the most sensitive to other
I
cultures?
know.
Shouldn't
It
the
is like
anthropology department shouldn't
it's
they be hosting like cross cultural potlucks and like
yeah,
I
have
don't
be
know.
more open-minded. It was, like, so funny. I know we don't comment on rants and raves, like, reactions, but I just gotta say, like, when you sent this to me, it was one of those headlines that, like, made me laugh and then also scratch my head at the same time, like our taste buds and our HR policies, like, took the day off on both of these situations.
Apparently for several months. So
Yeah.
apparently this is the worst anthropology department in the entire world, right?
Oh
Like,
my gosh, here we
but so
are.
very disappointed
Yeah,
in my
alma
school.
mater. Mm,
Good luck to these graduate students as they
yeah.
continue their education.
Well, let's end on a positive note here. So, big news out of Walmart this week. They're significantly boosting pay and career opportunities for thousands of pharmacy technicians, elevating 3,000 roles into higher paid team lead positions and expanding ranges up to almost $40 an hour or more at some locations. And it's just a bold move that recognizes like career pathways without requiring a college degree. So
Awesome.
I just thought this was really cool news, yeah, to share.
Nice job. Nice job, Walmart. And nice job, Nadia. I think that is going to be
And
our
Rob,
show today.
that's our show.
Let me end here with Leadership and Innovation Unlocked is a production of Inclusive Collective Media and edited by Ari Mathey. Happy birthday this week,
Happy
Ari,
birthday,
a fellow
Ari.
Aquarian. We say what we need to say, right? That's what Aquarians do. We'd love to hear from you, our guests. So send us your feedback at inclusivecollectivepodcast@gmail.com. You can find us on LinkedIn, YouTube, Instagram, and Facebook. If you like what you heard, be sure to subscribe and rate us wherever you get your podcast. Share us with your friends. Dr. Nadia Butt, it is fantastic to see you as always. We'll see you in a couple of weeks.
Happy birthday, Ari.